Barron Trump stayed out of the spotlight for years until Jasmine Crockett mentioned his name on live television, forcing him to confront a reality even his family had never prepared him for. It happened just 12 minutes into broadcast. The studio lights were harsh. The atmosphere was tense but familiar. Another routine panel on Capitol View. The kind of Sunday morning political show people half watch while making coffee or folding laundry. Representative Jasmine Crockett, dressed in a navy suit, sat between two well-known commentators. Across from her sat Victor Levinson, a former lobbyist turned political analyst, known for cutting people off mid-sentence. The discussion was on ethics, particularly about investigations building quietly behind the scenes. Campaign finance issues, conflict of interest, hush money claims. Nothing unusual until Jasmine leaned forward, fixed her eyes on the host, and spoke. "I just find it surprising," she said evenly, "that no one talks about what happened with the trust restructuring in January 2021, especially the part involving Barron Trump's name. That was not a mistake. It was deliberate." The table froze. The host, veteran anchor De'Ara Collins, blinked hard and cleared her throat like she was swallowing something heavy. Victor smirked, assuming Crockett had slipped, but she stayed steady, looking like she had been waiting months to say it. De'Ara tried to redirect. "Congresswoman, just be clear. Are you saying Barron Trump was part of a financial transfer at the end of the Trump presidency?" "I am saying there is a paper trail with his name on it, and we need to stop pretending it is not there." The control room cut to commercial before anyone could respond, but it was already too late. Within minutes, clips were online. The full quote, the reactions, De'Ara's stumble, Victor's grin. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Everyone was sharing the moment. Hashtags started trending before the show even came back from break. In the control room, a young producer whispered, "This one is going to explode." And it did. There had not been a live television moment that unpredictable since Katie Couric caught a senator misrepresenting Afghanistan troop numbers in 2011. But even then, it had never reached a former president's child, especially one who had almost never spoken publicly. Phones lit up. Reporters texted each other in all caps. And on a news panel in Austin, an analyst even pulled out her earpiece mid-show to ask if the claim was real. No one knew, but the damage had already been done. Back on set, in the next segment, Jasmine did not backtrack. She doubled down. "I am not attacking a child," she said. "I am showing how power protects itself. If Barron Trump's name was tied to that restructuring, then we need to discuss it. We cannot keep pretending certain names are beyond scrutiny." Victor shook his head. "You are politicizing a kid. I am politicizing records." She shot back. "If a name is used in a trust to shield wealth from oversight, that is not untouchable. That is a red flag." The host cut the discussion short. No applause, no laughter. It was not that type of moment. Backstage, an intern showed a coworker a phone screen. Barron's name was trending everywhere, but no one realized how close that mention came to the one person who wanted nothing to do with any of it. The clip was barely 40 seconds long, but it made no difference. The fallout was immediate, sparked by just 12 deliberate words. "Let's stop pretending some people are too sacred to question." To understand why those words rattled so many, especially the Trump family, we need to look back. A week before the show, Jasmine Crockett had received a confidential file. It was passed to her by a staffer from the House Oversight Committee. No cover note, no explanation, only a scanned document dated January 12, 2021. The file included paperwork from the blind trust adjustment made during the last 8 days of Trump's presidency carried an unexpected detail in the beneficiary section. One custodial entry listed the name Barron William Trump. Crockett, a former civil rights attorney, had reviewed hundreds of financial documents before. This one was different. Barron's inclusion was not routine. It looked intentional. The kind of placement used to shift assets, relying on the assumption that the youngest Trump would be considered untouchable. She kept the file for several days, unsure how to proceed. She discussed it with her chief of staff, Patrice Lattimore, a practical voice in her office. "If you mention that on air," Patrice warned, "they will call you ruthless. They will accuse you of dragging a kid into politics." Jasmine leaned back, hands pressed together. "He is 20 now. They use his name. That is not a child. That is a shield." She carried the file to the studio, uncertain she would even bring it up. But when Victor Levinson dismissed ongoing inquiries as baseless attacks on conservatives, she snapped. Jasmine had seen too many cases where powerful people hid behind the label of victim. She had had enough. She did not claim Barron had broken the law. She simply laid the fact out on live television and watched the room fall silent. In the following days, networks examined her wording closely. She never accused him of fraud, one anchor said, but she hinted he was part of it. Another responded. Analysts weighed in. A former IRS investigator explained on a podcast that adding a family member's name to a last-minute trust shift was not illegal, but it could be a tactic to slow down oversight or avoid transparency. The backlash was sharp. Crockett supporters praised her for challenging power directly, while critics said she had gone too far. Barron has done nothing, said one widely shared post. He is just a young man trying to stay out of the spotlight. Why involve him? Still, beneath the public debate, conversations in Washington turned more serious. Who gave Crockett the file? Was there more hidden? Was this a leak from someone cutting ties with the Trump circle? Soon a detail emerged that most had overlooked. An archived press statement from February 2021, issued by a Delaware-based financial firm, confirmed a trust restructure filed 3 days after Barron's name appeared in the document. It did not name individuals, but the timing aligned. Someone had moved money swiftly and quietly. The pieces began to form a pattern, even if the full picture remained unclear. At the center was the same question Jasmine had raised. If a name is used to shield wealth, can we really call that person uninvolved? Barron himself had not seen the broadcast live. When he finally did, it became personal. He was sitting at a cafe in Sarasota when his phone started buzzing nonstop. It was late afternoon, sunlight cutting through the palm trees. Across from him was his childhood friend, Drew Mallory. They were sharing iced coffee while flipping through a college course catalog. Barron had not enrolled yet, but he was considering it. Philosophy or computer science? Maybe both. He had avoided the spotlight for years. No Instagram, no podcasts, no interviews, just quiet. That was how he wanted it. Politics had drained his family enough. He had witnessed rallies, protests, endless headlines about his father. None of it ever felt real to him. Not the applause, not the outrage, just background noise. But now the noise had reached him directly. The first text came from a cousin in Nevada. You good? Turn on the news. Then a missed call from his mother. 2 more from an unknown number. Another message. Dude, what did Crockett just say about you? Barron frowned. What is going on? Drew glanced up from his phone. You might want to see this. He turned the screen toward him. A clip of Capitol View showed Jasmine Crockett leaning forward, calm and steady, saying Barron's full name like it was just another line of discussion. Barron's chest tightened, his hand gripping the cup. He did not respond at first. He just replayed it, over and over. Why would she say that? He finally asked. Drew said nothing. Barron lowered his gaze to the table. The edge of the wooden table was worn, chipped from years of use. Inside his head there was a steady hum. Not anger, not fear, just something unsettled. It felt like being exposed without even being present. He stood up suddenly. Let's go. They left the cafe, moving past a group of loud high school students outside. Barron pulled his hoodie over his head and walked quickly, not because anyone was following, but because stillness felt unbearable. He imagined eyes on him everywhere. Back at the condo, Melania was already pacing. She had not called again. She did not need to. She just looked at him when he stepped inside. I told your father years ago to stop using your name for those things, she said flatly. No greeting. No hug. Barron dropped his bag. So it's true. I do not know, she answered. Probably. He did a lot without telling me. The silence dragged. Did I sign anything? He asked. No. Then how does my name end up in a trust file? Melania turned away. Because that is how they do it. They use names like yours. Young, quiet, uninvolved, clean. He collapsed into a chair. That is not clean. That is wrong. She did not argue. That unsettled him more than her words. Later that night, his father called. Barron did not answer. He stared at the screen until it went dark again. He was not furious, not exactly, but something shifted, a quiet sense of betrayal. The worst part was that nobody had warned him, not a word. The next morning, cameras waited outside the gate. Not crowds, just a few, but enough to remind him what it felt like to be pulled into the public eye again. One called out, Barron, is Crockett lying? Were you part of the trust? He ignored them, walking inside without speaking. Behind closed doors in Palm Beach, however, his name was being spoken in a very different tone. At Mar-a-Lago, the atmosphere was tense. Donald Trump paced the formal sitting room in slow, Measured steps, the kind he used when forcing himself not to lose control. A Fox Business broadcast played silently in the background. The headline scrolled, Crockett names Barron Trump in trust allegation, White House links. He turned to his longtime attorney, Seth Delaney, a gray-haired man who had cleaned up more than a few crises. She was not supposed to go there. Donald said sharply, "Do you hear me? There are rules. You do not go after family." Not him. Seth nodded, though his silence spoke more. He knew the media did not follow the old rules anymore. Melania sat nearby, arms crossed, legs pulled close like she was frozen in place. She had said little since the night before. She did not need to. Ivanka's voice came through on speaker from Miami, firm and cold. "Dad, this is going to spiral. I just spoke with Ronan. Networks are already asking for archive files." Donald exhaled. "Let them dig. There is nothing illegal. There is something," Ivanka countered, "and that is enough. This is not 2016. You cannot just wait it out." Melania finally spoke. "He did not know, Donald." Trump stopped pacing. "Who did not?" "Barron." Donald blinked. "What are you saying?" "Of course he did not know. That is the point. He is not a child anymore," she replied softly. "He understands now, and he is angry." For a moment, something flickered across Trump's face, maybe regret. It faded quickly. He turned back to Seth. "Find out who gave Crockett that file. Someone leaked it. I want a name. I want a face." Seth nodded again. "We will check, but you should also consider a public response." Trump dismissed it. "Absolutely not. You respond, you give it weight. She is baiting me. I will not give her that." In another wing, Barron sat in his room staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed again, a message from a number he had not seen since boarding school in Maryland. "Did not think I would see you trending. You okay?" He swiped it away without replying. A quiet knock followed. His father entered more slowly than usual. "Mind if I sit?" Barron shrugged. "Sure." Donald sat on the desk chair, spinning it slightly with one hand the way he once did when Barron was small. He looked at his son, now taller, expression unreadable. "I did not think it would come back like this," Trump said, eyes fixed ahead. Barron kept looking upward. "Why use my name? You were not involved in anything. It was paperwork. That is all. A name helps, makes things fit, makes it look proper." "You mean I make it look proper?" Barron asked. Donald did not argue. Not this time. He let the silence settle. "I never wanted this," Barron said. "I have spent my whole life avoiding this mess." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes you do not choose what gets tied to your name." "I did not tie anything," Barron replied, finally meeting his father's eyes. "You did." That struck harder than Donald expected. While the family worked to contain the fallout, the outside world was already peeling back more than one layer. By Monday, Barron Trump's name had appeared on every major news outlet, not as a side note, but placed directly in headlines, podcast openings, TikTok explainers, and political blogs with arrows and circles on screenshots. CNN ran a split screen showing Jasmine Crockett's statement alongside a photo of Barron in an airport. MSNBC had panelists debating if mentioning him was fair or careless. On Fox, the framing was harsher, calling it a deliberate attack on an innocent young man. The facts were not complete, but the internet did not wait for verification. It rarely does. Clips of Crockett's words gather more than 20 million views in one day. Someone turned it into a montage with violin music. Another remixed it into a meme, showing Barron's face pasted onto an explosion behind her. Online nuance was gone. Hashtag surge, Barron trust, Crockett files, too sacred to question. Even poor Barron trended, mostly from defenders, though speculation did not stop. A Reddit post claiming insider knowledge from a former White House worker gained 15,000 comments. It included blurry screenshots of supposed financial papers, most of them altered. But truth was secondary. The crowd had already decided. Some were convinced Barron was a pawn in his father's plan. Others believed it was a deep state move to harm Trump before the next election. Then came the live stream. YouTubers and political voices hosted multi-hour panels with titles like The Secret Trump Trust and What Barron Knows. One man in Portland insisted he had leaked Deutsche Bank emails, though he produced nothing. Still, more than 200,000 people tuned in. Reporters who had long ignored Barron now dug through public files for anything: applications, signatures, real estate records. Privacy, once expected for the youngest Trump, disappeared in less than 2 days. Meanwhile, in Miami, Jasmine Crockett's office was swamped. They never expected the scale of reaction. Their inbox filled with both hate mail and support. Dozens of voters wrote to thank her for speaking when others stayed silent. One retired teacher from Oregon said, "At last, someone said what many of us were thinking, that no name should shield wrongdoing." Crockett's press secretary urged her to soften her words with a clarifying note, but Jasmine refused. "I never accused anyone. I revealed the detail. If it were false, they would have sued already." She was right. Despite the noise, Trump's lawyers had not sent a single cease and desist. No lawsuits, only silence. And to many, that silence said the most. But online talk shifted into deeper digging. A political blogger from Phoenix, who had broken 2 campaign finance stories in the past year, posted a cryptic thread. He hinted he found something in Delaware's records, dropping only fragments, a timestamp, a trust number, and a screenshot matching Crockett's notes. Suddenly, the story moved beyond reaction into investigation. And the next step would not come from the press, from Crockett, or from Trump. It came from someone unexpected, Barron himself, far from Washington and Palm Beach. In a small apartment above a liquor shop in Phoenix, a man named Curtis Rose leaned over 2 monitors. His place was cluttered with open notebooks, food boxes, and a ceiling fan groaning overhead. Curtis was not a conventional reporter. No degree, no newsroom job. But his record made him hard to dismiss. 2 years earlier, he revealed a secret political action group funneling for money into a midterm race. That story was buried beneath louder headlines, but those who tracked money remembered. He had not planned to revisit the Trump family, but when Crockett said Barron's name live on TV, something clicked. He recalled spotting that name in an online registry months earlier, a trust filed under Delaware's system. Back then it was nothing. Now it could be everything. Curtis reopened the portal, typing carefully, Trump Trust 2021. Nothing. He tried another search. W. Trump. Still nothing. Then he recalled when an accountant once told him over drinks, when people hide money, they avoid obvious names. They use initials, shell firms, and custodians. So Curtis checked every trust filed in Delaware between January 6th and January 15th, 2021. 57 entries. He scanned each one, matching addresses, comparing LLC manager. Then he spotted it. A trust called BW Legacy Holdings, filed January 12, 2021. Custodian, minor adult beneficiary. Mailing address, a P.O. box linked to an accounting firm in Palm Beach. And at the bottom, in faint black ink, was a familiar signature from White House visitor logs. Emma Yanovich, Trump's longtime tax lawyer. Curtis leaned back in his chair. He did not leap to conclusion. He saved copies, traced link files, and checked public LLC records. The more he followed, the clearer it became. This was not one random registration. It was part of a layered network, shell firms in Wyoming and South Dakota, all leading back to the same structure. Barron William Trump's full name never appeared again, but his initials did. BWT, listed under deferred beneficiary designations. Curtis knew what that meant. It did not show Barron was running anything, but it suggested someone intended him to benefit later. That made Crockett's comment more than speculation. Now came the hardest step, going public. He could post the files, but trolls would rip them apart, or worse, target him. They could dismiss him as biased or spin it as a political attack. He paced, pulse racing. Finally, he shared a single document with one caption. Why was a trust naming BWT as beneficiary created 3 days before the Trump presidency ended? And why has no one asked? The tweet spread instantly. Users connected the dots. BWT, January 12th, Trump's lawyer, Palm Beach. It was enough to restart the storm. Within 20 minutes, Curtis received a DM from a freelancer in Jacksonville. Are you certain it is who you think? He replied, yes, but I am not the one who owes answer. They are. Back in Sarasota, Barron saw the tweet in bed. He read it several times. His family gave no denial. No lawyer spoke, just silence. He stared at the screen. For once, the questions were not directed at him but around him, and the wait to respond was closing in. Instead of hiding, Barron made a choice that shifted everything. He had not posted publicly in years, not since the forgotten SoundCloud account from school days. Even then, it was only music, no words, no face. He liked staying in the background. That had always been the unspoken rule. Stay quiet, avoid reaction, and people would forget he existed. But this was different. His name was everywhere, turned into memes, dissected on panels, repeated across media. The trust, the initials, the signature, even his middle name was now ammunition. He was not built for this, Not like his father, not like Ivanka, who had trained for it. He was just a kid pulled into a world he had worked to avoid. Late Tuesday, in a private group chat, Barron finally admitted it. I think I want to say something. One friend replied instantly. Asterisk public? Careful. That could make it worse. Asterisk, but silence already felt worse. Silence felt like drowning. He opened his notes app, typed, deleted, typed again. Nothing fit. Every draft sounded either stiff or defensive. The more time passed, the more his silence spoke for him. So instead of a public post, he reached out to someone who always treated him like a person. Not a Trump, not a name. Her name was Leah Quinton. She had one sat next. She had taught him for 2 semesters at Columbia Prep. Now, she ran a modest but steadily growing independent news channel on YouTube, mostly focused on social commentary and mental health. No studio sets, no polish. He reached out to her late that night. Not sure you want to take this on, but I'd rather talk to someone real than get eaten alive by CNN. She replied almost instantly. You're sure? He typed back, yes. The next afternoon, Leah was on a flight to Sarasota. There were no cameras, no microphones clipped on. She brought only a small recorder. No stage lights, no makeup crew. Just 2 chairs in a dim room, blinds half drawn. Barron didn't want his face shown, but he wanted his voice to be heard. The interview lasted just under 15 minutes. Most of it was careful, uncertain, deliberate. Barron never denied the trust existed, but he didn't claim to fully understand it either. I never signed anything. I didn't even know about it until last week. If someone wants to hand me something in a vault when I turn 30, fine. But don't make it sound like I agreed to all this. I didn't. When Leah asked how it felt watching the story play out, his voice wavered. It's strange hearing people talk like I'm either a victim or a villain. I'm not either. I'm just trying to live normally. She didn't press further. She didn't need to. The pauses said as much as his answer. Barron closed the conversation with a quiet, almost uneasy reflection. I think people need to stop assuming silence from someone young means we're okay with everything. Sometimes we're just tired of being spoken for. That evening, Leah posted an audio clip. Within hours, the internet lit up. Some dismissed it as a PR stunt, but many praised him for being more open than anyone else in his family ever had. Hashtags flipped overnight. Let Barron speak trended for hours. What struck people wasn't the detail of what he said, but how unfiltered and human it sounded. The political world didn't know how to handle that. While Barron's words stirred empathy, Jasmine Crockett was fighting her own battle. She stood at the tinted window of her D.C. office, watching dusk fall over Capitol Hill. Behind her, her phone buzzed for the 6th time in 5 minutes. She didn't check. She already knew the messages were about Barron's interview. The shift wasn't directly against her, but it wasn't in her favor either. The media had moved the conversation. It wasn't about the trust anymore. It was about the ethics of mentioning someone like Barron live on air. Headlines captured it. Crocker's statement sparked sympathy for Trump's son. Was it too far? Barron speaks. Nation listened. Her office was tense. Phones rang without pause. Emails came in nonstop, some supportive, others furious. Patrice Lattimore, her chief of staff, paced the room holding a tablet with press talking points they had been avoiding all week. You don't have to apologize, Patrice said gently, but you do need to respond. You're letting everyone else steer the story. Jasmine stayed quiet. She wasn't weighed down by guilt. She didn't regret what she said, though maybe how it landed. Turning from the window, she muttered, "They're making it about tone instead of truth." "I know," Patrice answered, "but tone makes people listen. Truth just keeps them arguing." Jasmine rubbed her forehead. "Do you think I went too far?" Patrice was honest. "I think you went further than people were ready for that night." Later, Jasmine recorded a short video at home. No podium, no flag, no staging, just her in a sweatshirt at her kitchen table. She didn't retract anything, but her delivery was softer, more conversational. "To those who felt I crossed a line, I hear you. I understand your reaction, but I also believe we can talk about power structures without pretending certain names should be shielded. My responsibility isn't to protect feelings. It's to protect fairness." She paused and ended firmly. If a name is used, it deserves scrutiny, even if the person didn't choose to be involved. That isn't an attack. That's accountability. The clip spread quickly. Some applauded her for holding her ground. Others said she had missed a chance to show grace. But one thing was clear. She wasn't backing down. That same day, her office received an unmarked package. Inside a thin envelope were 3 typed pages listing dates, trust movements, and one strange entry. Custodial override filed under adult minor clause. Few outside the legal field would grasp its weight, but for Crocker, it was a warning sign. Someone was still leaking, and they wanted her to push further. Patrice studied the paper. You think it's bait? Jasmine shook her head. No, it's a door, and someone's daring me to open it. She slipped the envelope into her briefcase and locked it. That evening, she replayed Barron's interview. She lingered on his words. I didn't sign up for any of this. For the first time, she didn't see the family name, just a kid with a father making choices in rooms he wasn't part of. It complicated things, but the person feeling it most wasn't Jasmine. It was Barron himself, still trying to understand what any of this meant. He sat by the pool at the Sarasota condo, knees hugged to his chest, earbuds in but no sound playing. Moonlight scattered over the water in fractured strips, like it was speaking in its own secret language. He hadn't been online all day. The quiet felt better. His mother sat nearby, draped in a shawl, tea cooling in her hands. They sat in silence until Melania finally spoke. I watched the interview. He looked over. Yeah, you sounded like yourself. Barron smiled faintly. That's good. I wasn't trying to sound like anyone else. She hesitated. Do you want to know what your father said about it? He shrugged. Not really. She sipped anyway. He said you were careful, that you didn't give anyone anything they could twist. He was relieved. Barron nodded, still staring at the water. I think he was also a little scared. She raised her eyebrows. Of you saying more? No, of me saying just enough. He didn't add more, but the words stayed with him. The TV inside was running. CNN debated whether children of public figures should be accountable for financial moves tied to their names. Barron got up and switched it off. Later that night, his father arrived unannounced. Melania let him in quietly. He moved through the door in his usual navy blazer, no tie, looking more worn down than usual. The past week had left its mark. Can we talk? He asked. Barron sat on the couch. His father didn't take a seat, just stood with his hands in his pocket. I know this isn't how you want to be seen, Trump said softly. I never wanted this for you either. Then why use my name? Barron asked. There was no anger, just tired honesty. Trump turned his gaze away. Because I thought it was harmless. I didn't think it would matter. It was meant to protect you. Barron shook his head. Not for me. His father looked like he was carrying the weight of that answer.